able to use for those tickets. So without further ado, Josh, I think we're just going to start going down and breaking this thing up. Um, I kind of want to go uh, by position, just bouncing around the top stacks of the week and the top games. So what we'll go ahead and do is we will look at these first games and see what kind of matchups we have and what are healthy stack environments. So a lot of you saw a preview of this last week on the podcast that we did in Discord for the NFL Season Pass members, but now we get to bring this out front here. The first couple games on the slate aren't really that fantasy friendly. New York Jets and Carolina Panthers are one that is juicy to me from first look. Philly, Atlanta has some guys in it, but there are some that are a little bit trappy, and that's the Chargers, Washington, Seattle, Indianapolis. But the one that I really want to talk about here is Arizona and Tennessee. Now we'll bring this one up. You do have the ability to use both quarterbacks in your tournament stacks, as well as plenty of run back options, plenty of double stack options. For those of you who do not know strategy that we're talking about, there are a lot of ways to go about this, but the main focus on tournaments over the past 2 years specifically has been the strategy of rostering a quarterback and then rostering two of his pass catchers. You can use one in some scenarios, but let's use Rondale Moore in this scenario. And then running it back with one or two people from the other team. In this regard, in this game script, we would use Derrick Henry as I believe Tennessee is a favorite in this one. So Henry, they run the ball early. He gets a score to Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins with Rondale Moore. Will try to run this thing back and pass through the air. You want to try to capture all your touchdowns on FanDuel specifically because it is a half PPR site and touchdowns are worth more. So for me, would be a solid way to start things out, and then you can kind of mix and match the rest of your lineup. Maybe include a double stack, and we'll talk about how to approach that. But Josh, let's start out and talk about any other games that we would like to discuss in regards to this game stack approach for Week 1.
Yeah, definitely. Before we do move on from that spot of Arizona and Tennessee, I will just say that it's not a half bad idea instead of going Rondale Moore to go Chase Edmonds instead at the running back spot. We know that Edmonds is going to be involved in that pass game. It still follows along with that script that we have of, Arizona is going to have to be pass heavy while probably the Titans are going to try to rely a little bit more on the run just because Tannehill hasn't had as much practice time recently due to the COVID bout that they're facing. And so I don't mind Edmonds in that second spot instead of Rondale Moore. I feel like Rondale Moore is more of a wait it out and see approach just because we don't know what he's going to look like. We don't know where he's going to slot in at that offense. So that's just my thoughts on what to do with that stack because I think it is one of the top stacks of the slate, and I like the Chase Edmonds play. What do you think about Edmonds as your second running back?
James Conner.
James Conner.
I'm kidding, but seriously though, we do need to talk about that because that is definitely something that could happen this week. I'm on the side of I think Edmonds is fully in play on DraftKings. FanDuel, the price tag's great. I'm not going to dispute that at all. I do think he gets the work. I think he gets in the range of 15 to 18 touches. That should pay off his salary. In tournaments, though, you're really banking on him getting a touchdown, and I would hope it would be through the air because I don't think that they're going to give Chase Edmonds a smaller back compared to Connor the end zone work. So I think to get crazy, I don't hate the idea of using Edmonds as the run back when you're focusing on stacks on the Tennessee side. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I certainly don't mind that if that's the route you want to go. I think getting that QB stack, I mean, we've talked about it a few times. This Titans team is going to have one of the most dangerous offensive sets that we've seen in quite a while. I mean, you have Tannehill, who proved to be a really good quarterback last season and a top fantasy quarterback. You have one of the best running backs in the league in Derrick Henry, and then you added another weapon with Julio Jones into this wide receiver set. So, like, this offense is scary, man. They can do a lot of things. And with Arizona adding so many pieces to the team this offseason, or adding so many pieces to the defense this offseason, it might take a few games for them to fully meld together in game action. So I could totally
Yeah.
see this Tennessee side lighten things up.
Agreed. CBC Sports Cards subbing at tier 1 for 6 months in advance. You love to see it. Thank you so much, sir. We love you too. Let's talk. Let's see. Do we want to just dive into this thing, or do we want to talk about one more game scenario?
Let's talk about one more game scenario because I think there are a lot of game scenarios where you can stack. I'll bring up one that's super interesting. Let's talk about the Jags and the Texans real quick.
Oh, it's a juicy one. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's a very juicy one. So with this stack, I think what you end up doing is you'd probably end up taking Trevor Lawrence, hoping that this Houston defense is going to be as bad as advertised. And then you can load up on.
Sorry, guys. We're making sure to adjust on that tomorrow. We're changing this tomorrow.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out tomorrow. Regardless, my point is that you can go to T-Law and then take some wide receivers in this set, or you can just take James Robinson, not take a QB from Houston, and take guys like Brandon Cooks, like Chris Connolly, maybe a Nico Collins, who I expect to fall into line with this Houston team. I think either way, is this a stack where you can go QB-less?
Yeah, you definitely can. I think for me, I would focus on a pass catcher from each side. I think that's viable. I think you can do a running back and a wide receiver. My favorite right now is James Robinson running it back with Brandon Cooks. That's not going to be that's not going to be contrarian at all. People are going to have that everywhere. It's even a cash game build, honestly. But yeah, you can make the argument that you can go QB less here, especially with the QBs on this slate, right? Like, I would not feel very comfortable rostering either of these guys because you will need 3 touchdowns from them in order to win tournaments or even maybe get higher than a min cash play. Yeah, Vaughn, you understand, right? Yeah, that Discord stuff happens to me. Happens to you all day too. Yeah, that's something we'll figure out for tomorrow. Marvin Jones, Kai's screaming from the rooftop. Kai, just because you're the AP doesn't mean that you can make the call on Jones.
Look at Steady gifting 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you, man. Greatly appreciated. Appreciate having you watching us on the stream.
What's up? Yep. Thank you so much, sir. And Josh, I don't know about you, but that was just as loud, if not louder than it normally is on my end. So that was incredibly loud and painful.
Wait, what was there an alert?
The sub alert came to me.
I don't get to hear it. I don't get to hear it, so I'm good. I'm Gucci over here.
Oh man, yeah, it just keeps coming. I guess we'll have to figure that out too, because that's gonna blow my eardrums by the end of the day. Anyway, I like this stack a lot. I think that people are going to shy away from it because the game total is so low. I believe the last time we saw the number, it was 45 as of this morning. I could be wrong on that, but people are going to gravitate towards the Arizona, Tennessees of the world, the Green Bay, New Orleans, the Cleveland, Kansas City. But I think that there's definitely viable plays here, and I think a lot of them are in cash consideration. So, Josh, let's go ahead and get this thing started here. We're going to go one by one, kind of like we would do the Two Minds lineup, and try to talk things out for the members so they get a little bit of an inside look at how we roster these kinds of tournament plays.
Yeah, for sure. Starting out at the QB position, I feel like I got to bring up the guy that I talked to you about before the stream and someone that I said in GPPs, I could see myself locking in a ton of my builds. I don't know how contrarian it's going to be. I don't know if everyone's going to be on this play. I don't know if no one's going to be on this play, but I really like Patrick Mahomes against the Browns this weekend. I saw this stat, and it absolutely blew my mind that Patrick Mahomes, 10-0 in September, and over September.
It's a good take, I promise you guys. S'mores, welcome to the chat, man. Welcome to the chat. I told them I promise it's a good take.
Yeah, it is a good take. I promise. Even if Discord doesn't think so, I think so, and Jared thinks so. We've seen Mahomes over his September games throw 0 interception, has had 32 touchdowns. I mean, just average it out. Means he's having 3 touchdowns a game. And I think he could throw even more against this Cleveland team. I mean, you do have Clyde Edwards-Helaire dealing with that ankle injury, right? And you also have Darrell Williams dealing with an injury as well. So
Yep.
who's to say that KC, it's going to be a tough matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland is a 10-win team. Why wouldn't you just air out the ball and do the thing that you know you do best with Patrick Mahomes? So I like Mahomes here. I like the full stack too, which on FanDuel, they made it pretty easy to just load up here and get Mahomes, get Tyreek Hill, and get Travis Kelsey at the tight end spot. I think that it's one of the top tournament stacks on the slate, bar none. Like I don't know a tournament stack that comes close for me.
Yeah, there is none, right? I mean, if you play, you're able to do whatever you want on this slate, like you normally are on week one slates. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, even though they're all over 8K, you're still able to fit whatever you please. So for this purpose, let's go Mahomes, unless you were going somewhere else. And we're going to get different because I do expect that ownership to be through the roof in regards to tournaments. And we are going to start this with going with a guy who I think is probably going to be popular, but not as popular as Tyreek Hill. He's looked every single preseason game that they had. This guy was getting targets consistently with the starting group, and I'm going to go with Mecole Hardman at 5,400 because I do think that he's the guy that's going to step up and take a huge leap forward with Sammy Watkins not in the mix anymore.
Yeah, I know you love Mecole Hardman. I know you've been very bullish on the take, so I certainly don't mind it, and I definitely see where you're coming from. All right, let's get some more. Let's go to running back. Let's save some money here, and I know this isn't necessarily going to be a contrarian play. Actually, it's just plain out not going to be a contrarian play. A lot of people are going to go here, but I really like James Robinson this week. I mean, there's no reason not to like him against Houston. And now that he's not splitting with ETN, I mean, he's just going to have full ownership. And I feel like it's kind of a spot.
Where he was going to, and guys, it's literally like storming like crazy out my window, so I'm sure that doesn't help anything. But his connection will be back shortly. But what he was getting to was that he's 5,900 on FanDuel, which is absolutely bananas. So, with that being said, I'll let Josh finish his take here because he'll be back in. But you listen to the opponent ranking on this one, and you just go with it. It's 30-second. I know that we normally, and this is something that I swear by, but you never look at the opponent ranking, especially on FanDuel and DraftKings. I mean, it's just one of those things where you just lock and load the dude. So we'll put James Robinson in here like Josh was gonna do anyway. Yep, he keeps getting chopped by Discord. We had an issue like that this morning. We thought we had it all figured out, and apparently we do not because Discord is the woat today. Yeah, we're currently working on this. I'm going to answer John's question. Does Hyde take any of Robinson's touches? Honestly, I don't think that he does. I really don't. Like, I think that there's a scenario here where Carlos Hyde's like 30 plus years old. Not to say that's in a mean way, but he's gonna get probably, I don't know, he'll get some third down work here and there. He'll be brought in as a pass blocker, but I'm not concerned at all with James Robinson's workload. And honestly, could be a time like we probably won't see as many carries as we did last year. Probably won't see as much as we did last year of him, but I still think it's a fantastic option for week one, and I'm very bullish on this take. And Josh, I know you were talking about his price tag. This is probably the biggest misprice of the slate, in my opinion. I think there you could name a couple players, but I think this one's the biggest one. And there's always one of these plays in this year. It's James Robinson.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree. I mean, they got the price tag wrong, and this is a spot where you're going to routinely see him be 7K plus. So the fact that he's under 6 is kind of insane.
Agreed. So I did see a question earlier about why everybody is in love with Brandon Cooks. I think it's more so the fact that his price tag is where it is at 6K. There's a lot of wide receivers, and we'll talk about this over the rest of the week here. But since this is a first look, just want to give an overview for you guys. There's a couple guys up here like Tyreek and Calvin that are in good spots. But then when you start, like Justin Jefferson is a fantastic play as well. Once you start getting into this section, outside of Adam Thielen, there's not much that I love or screams out to me from a fantasy perspective. Um, Outside of maybe one or two guys, but the next available guy is Brandon Cooks sitting here at 6'3". And I think if you were to pick one of Brandon Cooks or Deebo Samuel, I think I have to lean with Cooks in this spot. I truly believe that. We talked about this on the morning show, Josh, that if the Texans have the capability to win one game, it would be this one. I think that this is their Super Bowl, and this is their chance to prove that, maybe people are underestimating them this year.
Yeah, I can completely get behind it. We talked about it plenty on the morning show, just saying that like not many other opportunities for this team to win, so it's kind of do or die here against Jacksonville.
Instead of taking Brandon Cooks with this run back, because I do want to run back something with James Robinson, I think that there's a really good shot here to, let's see. I'm interested in targeting one of these Houston guys. I know Anthony Miller is questionable. He's been dealing with some stuff in the preseason, but I'm going to go out on a limb, take the more boomer bust guy, and go Chris Connolly at 5-1 because I think, obviously, Cooks, I think he's a cash game play this week. I think people are going to roster him a ton. So to get leverage off of that and save some money, not like we have to because we can literally do whatever we want. So it's about getting different, and I'm going to go Chris Conley at 5,100.
Yeah, you're certainly getting different with Chris Conley. I feel bad for being the chalk donkey here, but I think since you were able to save money at the wide receiver position, I can continue being a chalk donkey and finish our full stack. Let's get Travis Kelsey in a tight end.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely necessary. And speaking about tight ends, I'm actually going to go full screen on this and look at the tight end position in general. There's literally nothing here, right? Like you have Kelsey at the top in a smash spot. Cleveland has been terrible against the tight end opposing tight ends for years now, and dating back to when they were winning 3-2 games a season. And now you have George Kittle, who I agree is in a good spot. Maybe he's an interesting tournament play. We'll talk about Kittle here as I toss it back to you. But outside of that, people are probably going to play Kyle Pitts week one just because they want to see him. It's name recognition. He's the shiny new toy in the NFL. But other than that, man, it gets really, really dirty down here, especially with these guys that are dealing with injuries. We don't have, obviously we know Irv Smith's out, but we don't really have the news much for some of these guys. I know Hawkinson is a guy people are all over this year, and he's already coming in banged up. Evan Ingram got hurt in the last preseason game. Yeah, Zach Ertz is intriguing, but other than that, I'm honestly sticking with Travis Kelsey here, and he's the clear play in cash games. But is there any? I just noticed that Hawkinson's player profile got updated. I didn't realize he had such long hair. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's really just Travis Kelsey here, right? You said it perfectly. Once you go down this list, it gets ugly and uglier the farther you go. Even up top, I don't really like any options. Kyle Pitts, no thank you. Dallas Goedert, we don't know what that workload is going to look like with Zach Ertz healthy and on the field again. TJ Hawkinson against one of the best defenses in football, I'll pass. Logan Thomas is a maybe. I feel like that's an okay play at 5,600. Mike Gesicki, again, an okay play, but these guys are okay plays down here. We have a phenomenal play in Travis Kelsey, even point per dollar wise. I think he could outscore any other tight end on the slate. So I think that Kelsey's your guy.
Yeah, don't overthink this one, guys. People will, and they're gonna. That's probably one of the lock and loads for this slate. Don't overthink it. Okay, so now we have a quarterback with two of his pass catching options, and we also have a different game where we have one run back from each side. Let's talk about Cleveland here. And I want to talk about, I know this is the highest total on the slate of 53. My thought process here is while everybody is going to start playing, it's not a secret that people know what the strategy is of building these lineups. So is there any merit to just fading the entire Cleveland Browns side? Or do you think you need a piece of them?
I think there is merit to fading. If you are looking for someone to take, I don't know. Never mind. I don't even feel good about taking any of these guys. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, like trying to be like bold and trying to give you a run back. I mean, like Jarvis Landry, okay option, I guess, but not a great option, right? And that's what we're looking for in a tournament lineup. We're looking to like every single piece of our lineup. I don't think Landry is going to be one of those guys that I end up liking.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a very, very similar script to what we saw in the playoffs last year between these two teams, right? So for me, I think the only viable one that I would really consider is a guy like Kareem Hunt. I think that they will use him out of the backfield quite a bit. The one risk, and this is obviously a tournament lineup, so risk is, whatever, but Chubb and Hunt are gonna, they're gonna do their thing. They're gonna split touches. The upside for these guys is awesome, but again, at the end of the day, they're still a two-man team with possibly, and honestly, Dearness Johnson is always sitting there too, waiting for carries. So I wouldn't be surprised if he even gets work in this game. But I think that goes to show that we don't necessarily have to run it back with Cleveland. So Josh, I kind of want to find another game, a mini stack here, and let's go. We have 6,500, which is plenty of money, and let me go ahead and maybe look at some guys from this New York Jets and Carolina game. Now, the running back core for the New York Jets is extremely scary. You have Tevin Coleman who's probably going to be the RB1. There's been no clear indication of that yet, but I do think that he won the job during the preseason. Michael Carter was a guy that I was super high on, still am for dynasty purposes, but for daily fantasy, I'm taking a wait and see approach. He's banged up in camp, and now he lost technically it was his job to lose in preseason, and he lost it. So you also have Ty Johnson sitting there too, which is always, we know how much Ty Johnson can control with the best of them. So I'm probably staying away from the running backs for this game. McCaffrey's interesting. We'll talk about him as the week goes on in chat, in Discord, on these streams. I'm not super high on McCaffrey this week. I never really like playing running backs against the Jets, and now even with Gase gone, I still think I'm going to stick with that mantra. Tell me your thoughts on McCaffrey here, and do you think that I'll say before I toss it to you that I think that he's definitely going to be lower owned than Dalvin Cook, but is he in as just as good of a spot?
I think so, man. I truly like. Here's the thing with the Jets. They got Robert Saleh as their head coach, and Saleh did a great job with the Niners. But it took him a few years to get there with that team, right? It took him a few years to get that chemistry down. And I think you kind of had the same scenario play out with this Jets team. I think you're not going to see much success from this defense just because of him until a few years down the line when he gets the crew that he actually wants and actually loves. And that's what happened with the Niners. He finally got the crew that he actually wanted and loved, and they ended up going to a Super Bowl. So I think it is going to take a few years to get that crew that he really wants. And for that reason, I think this Jets defense is going to struggle this season, just like we saw the Niners defense struggle the first few seasons with Saleh. So I like McCaffrey here at 10-4.
Okay.
Not to mention that like he's been waiting for this, right? We've talked about it on when we were doing the high stakes draft. You talked about it, saying that they brought him back in week 9, I think, against Tampa Bay, and then held him out again, knowing that he was probably healthy enough to go, because they wanted him to be healthy for this season. Now he's healthy. He's probably been biting at the bit to get back on the football field. And so now you have this opportunity where he has the best quarterback that he's had in recent memory, and he should be able to run all over this Jets team. So I really like McCaffrey. When you said that you wanted another mini stack, I went straight to McCaffrey. Like that was my first fill-in spot.
Okay, why don't we do that then? Because I think it was your pick anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I will say that I don't have any reservations about his health. I think the first thing people will say, and I've heard it time and time again over the summer, even yesterday, that are we concerned about McCaffrey's health? And I said, absolutely not. Like, I had a friend who was had the first spot in his fantasy draft actually last weekend, and he was talking about how he wanted to just play. Like it was no conversation; it was cook or bust. And I'm like, no, it's like he's back. It's just for me, he's 10,400 on the week one slate. When I don't think that we've ever seen him at 10K on a week one slate. So that is interesting. I do think that he's going to have a fantastic season, and we'll have to just see what happens when he hits 11K because I think that's coming. So we'll roster
Yeah,
him.
I agree. It definitely
Uh,
is coming.
okay, so let's talk about some Jets, and I know this is going to be gross, but we liked what we saw from Zach Wilson over the course of the preseason. Obviously, need to monitor Jamison Crowder in general. Like Crowder's just getting started with all the injury tags he's going to have this season. But I do want you to talk about Corey Davis because that's going to be my pick on this run back.
Yeah, Corey Davis has been a guy that I've been all over this preseason. I've been shouting it from the rooftops how Corey Davis has a lot of potential here to be the next big thing at wide receiver. Like him and Wilson seem to have a really good chemistry right now. It was after like week 2 of the preseason, I think, but there was no other
Yep.
wide receiver with over a like 40% target share with their starting QB in, and we saw that Zach Wilson had nearly a 50% target share with his QB in, so, with his QB1 in. So I think they have a good rapport so far. They're willing to rely on him. I think it's going to take Elijah Moore a little bit to get fully adapted to this offense. And I think that it's just full go ahead for Corey Davis. People forget that like Corey Davis was this highly touted guy coming into the NFL that had all the intangibles, that he was going to be the next big thing. I think this move to the Jets was perfect. He's finally in a spot where he can flourish. And like if all the rumors are right about Zach Wilson, where people are saying, I mean, we saw what Tony Romo said last week, saying that this guy was going to be a top 5 QB in the next 3 years. If that's true, then Corey Davis is going to keep going up right alongside Zach Wilson.
100% agree. I also like what I saw from Wilson in the preseason, especially with that early connection to Davis. That might hurt Crowder long term. It might not, but I think right now, honestly, Corey Davis is just way, way, way too cheap at 5'8". This is a guy, and I know the different offenses, but this was a guy who was the low 7Ks towards the end of the year last year for Tennessee. So I'm fully on board this train, and it's probably going to be a while until any of these Jets are priced up, Josh, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it also like just to touch back on this Jets team, they don't have Carter in at running back one, or at least it seems like they're not going to have him at the running back one slot. So like you have Tevin Coleman, that's great and all, but like what does Coleman give you in the running game, man? Like I don't think enough to where you'll be super impressed or they'll be super impressed, and it might force them to throw the ball even more, which just means more targets to Corey Davis. So like it's just
Yeah.
another reason to like Corey Davis
Yep.
at this $5,800 price tag.
Yep. And I mean, we should also bring up the fact, and this is the cherry on top, that they're basically going to be coming from behind the entire season, right? Like
Yeah,
there's only 1 or 2 games. One of them is against the Texans, but they're probably going to be passing in that one too. So yeah, they're going to be passing a lot, and I would not be surprised to see Corey Davis be in that 7K range again towards the end of the year.
for
Okay,
sure.
so what we have here, we can fill the rest of this out. So like I said before on last week's stream, I think that there are some clear-cut defenses. I think that Denver makes a lot of sense. I think that the Houston Texans makes a lot of sense at 3,400 against that offense that we aren't too sure of yet. But for this, we can probably play around with some stuff. I'm not going to go all the way up to the top, but I think that you can make a case for, let's see here. This is going to be a little bit contrarian, but I don't mind because normally I would roster Denver in this situation, but I already shit on them once today. Let's go ahead and do it twice, and we'll play the Washington football team against the Chargers, which I do think that they're going to have a good season, but this is a really, really tough matchup, East Coast or West Coast to East Coast at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it certainly is. And there we go. First game of the regular season back for this Washington football team, or for this Chargers team too. Like, and then having to go to East Coast as well. You add everything on top of each other, and it's just it's going to be a lot for that team. So I certainly don't mind Washington football team. The right play here, though, is the Broncos. Like, I think that the Broncos are obviously your top option, but I certainly don't mind getting contrarian with the Washington football team.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so we're sitting now in a spot where I believe it's your pick at 5,900 at the flex. So that leaves you with guys like, well, a
Tough
guy that you
spot.
talked about, but in Chase Edmonds. But I don't think you necessarily have to run it back with anything. No correlation needed here. Dallas Goedert, Chase Edmonds, Tyler Boyd, Cortland Sutton. We do have Damian Harris, but I don't really want to run him against Miami. So I don't know. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'd probably end up going with Chase Edmonds in this range just because I know that Titans defense isn't up to snuff exactly. And I believe in Edmonds. I think that he can do some things, and it's just going to be a high scoring environment there. So let's lock Chase Edmonds into our flex spot.
Okay, so in total, guys, we have Patrick Mahomes, and we are double stacking him with Mecole Hardman and Travis Kelsey. No Browns run back. Then we have a secondary stack of James Robinson in that Jacksonville and Houston game, running it back with Chris Conley, who's probably going to be less than 5% owned. And then the final mini stack, we do have Christian McCaffrey at 10,400 going up in his debut comeback spot against the Jets. Run back with Corey Davis, who we both expect to be a guy that could see, I don't know. What do you think? Double digit targets every single game this year? Does that sound too much?
No, not to me at least. Not this Corey Davis truther. I could totally see it happening.
Okay. And then we'll round it up with Chase Edmonds and the Washington football team. Now I'm going to just move some things